Hi, I'm Benton Stokes.
And I'm Elane O'Rourke.
And this is Cocktail Theology. Hola.
¿Cómo estás?
Bien. So as we record this, not as you listen to it, it is Cinco de Mayo. And to celebrate Cinco de Mayo today, we have pineapple margaritas. And this is a recipe sent to us from our listener, Bruce.
Uh-huh.
And I haven't tried mine yet. Have you tried yours yet?
Very barely.
All right, so I want to give it a sip.
All right.
And then I'll tell our listeners what's in it.
It has a tinkling because it has ice.
Ooh, this is yummy.
You like it?
Yeah. So the recipe is Blanco tequila, silver tequila. Mm-hmm. And then it's pineapple juice, orange curacao.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dry curacao.
A little bit of agave if you like it.
Yep.
And what was the last ingredient?
Meyer lemon.
And a Meyer lemon. That's right, which is different because generally we think limes.
Right. But Meyer lemons are only half lemon.
They're only half lemon, really?
Yes. Yeah, they're a hybrid.
How cool. No wonder they're so sweet.
That's why they're so sweet and so thin-skinned.
And we have a Meyer lemon tree.
They're precious children.
So they are.
They're sweet and thin-skinned.
They're delicate flowers.
They're delicate flowers. We do have a Meyer lemon tree. So so that was easy.
Yeah. So this is really, and then you added mint as a garnish.
I did, which adds a nice little scent to it.
It does. It's very fresh.
It's nice. Mm-hmm. So we are having Margaritas de piña. That was for everybody who's listening and doesn't mind my Spanish. And to celebrate what is probably the most American holiday of all, which is Cinco de Mayo.
Right. There's really nothing Mexican about it.
Not the way we do it anyway, that's for sure. So what are we talking about today, my friend?
So today our topic is simply the question, why me? And probably all of us have at one point or another asked that question to the universe.
Universe.
Oh, universe, why me?
Right.
And you know, people go through really hard stuff, and sometimes that may just be the first impulse that we have is to ask, why me?
Right.
You know, when the tire goes flat and it's pouring down rain, and you already have a sore throat, and you're already late for work, and this will be your third time, and
okay, wait a minute. You said that so comfortably.
I know.
That it does make me wonder.
It's just like my Tuesday. I don't know. No, it's not my Tuesday.
It's so not your Tuesday.
No,
I live the whole late to work thing.
Right, I live a pretty charmed life. But I can imagine, you know, certainly in the hard seasons that we've been through lately with COVID and all the other things.
Of course.
I can imagine people, you know, feeling that way. But really what we want to talk about is not sort of that, you know, maybe we all have that friend or family member that's sort of always the victim. Things are always harder for them. They're always they're just kind of whiny. And so we're not really talking about that per se, because that is something that is our own sort of emotionally motivated view of the world or whatever, and we put ourselves in the middle of it, really. I mean, it's just another way of self-absorption, because you're just putting yourself in the middle of your own universe, and then everybody's against you.
Right,
you know?
Right.
But that's not what we're talking about.
It's not. I do, however, need to speak to that one. And,
yeah, please.
And I'm going to confess my own foibles right here.
Okay.
So the why me that comes out of this story that someone tells themselves that the world is against them, or that they don't deserve XYZ or whatever it is, that kind of, you called it self-absorption, and it is, but it's also this really distorted story you're telling yourself about the way the world works.
Right.
So I admit that I'm allergic to people like that, who do it just incessantly.
Yeah.
And that's a therapeutic issue. It's a figuring out, it's a working with someone who's got training to do this, to work out what's going on for you, that your view of the world, the lens you put on the world, the story you tell yourself, makes you powerless and victimized.
Right.
And so when I get off my high horse of being like, oh my God, just shut up, and I get into the, okay, here's how you deal with this. We talk a lot about how important it is to get help you need, whether it's physical help
Yes.
or mental health help or monetary help, whatever that is,
Right.
getting the help you need. If this is something that you're going through where you're feeling victimized on a regular basis and it's about things that happen outside you that don't have to do with you, like a flat tire,
Right.
it's worth getting therapeutic help. So that's all. I just need to get that out.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so the why me we want to talk about, though, is the kind of why me that when something happens, tragic or not, particularly tragic, that idea that we're being punished. So you grew up in a much more conservative way of looking at the world than I did. Did you grow up with that whole sense that you would be punished if X, Y, Z?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And it was compounded by the church that I was a part of.
Sure.
I was always watching my P's and Q's and all the other letters.
Okay.
Always.
So how would you know you were being punished instead of something happening? Or was it just a complete worldview?
It was more of a worldview, and the punishment was looming. It was like this sense of, impending punishment.
Okay.
It's like when you do something, you're a kid and you do something and you know you shouldn't have done it, and you're waiting on your mom to get home and she's going to catch you for having done it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So it's sort of that sense of impending, oh no,
Okay.
all the time.
Okay.
That was the kind of like the theology that I grew up with, and the doctrine of the church that I grew up in, where basically God was just, tapping his pencil and just waiting for you to screw up.
Right.
So you could write it on his list of things you've screwed up.
So at that time, would you have attributed the flat tire in the rain, being late to work, would that have felt like a punishment, or would that have felt like an OF?
I think I'm not sure I would have considered that a punishment from God.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
But certainly, I think there were plenty of times when I was younger, before I had a much different and broader view of God, myself, the universe, that I would have thought, what's conspiring against me?
Oh, conspiring. That's actually a great word. That's actually a great word. It makes me think of the beginning of Job, where the Hasatan, the tempter, who had a job to be this person, right? The Hasatan has been traipsing up and down the earth, right? And looking to see how people are doing with their relationship with God, essentially. And God says, hey, go check out my servant Job. And the Hasatan says, really? You want to put some money on that? And essentially that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, by the way, for everybody who doesn't understand this is a mythic story. It is a way of, you know what it is? It is the biblical version of the American musical Circa, Oklahoma.
Oh.
It's a way of talking about something that is high drama, that is not intended to be taken as factual.
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, but it does remind me of that. And then the Hasatan goes out and he connects with Job and really pulls a number on Job. I mean, he decimates this man's life.
Yes.
And in all kinds of ways. And so Job spends the entire, I feel like it's 44 chapters. I mean, it's long. The whole book going, what the holy hell is going on?
Right.
And his friends come and give him very philosophical answers about this.
Yes.
And their answers, honestly, if you read through it, that makes sense. And of course, we get to the end and God says, what makes you think you know anything?
Yeah. Right.
End of sentence.
Right.
And now I'm going to give you everything. That's what's going on for us when we have that feeling. Why me? What did I do to make the fates angry, or to set this up? Or, could I change my behavior and have this undo on the stuff that has that aspect, right?
Right.
But on the stuff that doesn't have that aspect, something like a miscarriage, or I don't know why I'm thinking of children at the moment, but a child gets injured or killed, something like that, where it's obvious that you had nothing to do with it. And you just go, what is going on? What is this? What? Why? And I guess I understand the what, why, because we're always looking for answers. And whenever we're grieving, we want to know what and why.
Yes, we do.
I mean, it's a very normal, natural thing to be trying to make sense out of stuff before you accept it, to use Kubler-Ross's way of thinking. But the turning to the why me is something that is not part of that grieving process. It's a different way of looking at the world, right?
It is, right.
I think what bothers me about it is there's this sense that God is karma.
Yes.
Right?
Right. Talk about God as if God is karma.
What goes around comes around, right? But from a God point of view.
Right.
That's just not the way God seems to work. God doesn't seem to work that way in the Bible. God doesn't seem to work that way in the world.
Yeah, and it kind of comes back to that question of, why do bad things happen to good people, in a sense, because then again, you're attributing this to God, like, well, that person did something bad, or, when you're not taking into account that there are just laws of nature that, of course, God put into place. If I choose to step out in front of a bus and end up in a hospital for a month, and I'm saying, why me?
Right.
Well, it's because you stepped out in front of the bus.
Right.
It's not because God is smiting you.
Right. But going back to something like a miscarriage, which is so tragic. And
where you have no sense of agency or ownership in what happened.
Right. And so many people feel shame or guilt in their loss that it really becomes this compounded pain, right?
Yeah.
So Kubler-Ross had this idea that you went through multiple stages of grief, 5 and then 7, but 5. And the first one was always denial. Her idea about this has been, radically re-envisioned. She thought of it as a very progressive set of stages of grief. I don't think that's true. Recent psychology says no. But imagining that for the moment, I wonder if the why me is a way of denying a reality. I'm thinking if I can look at an event and be why me, I don't have to deal with the event. I can be dealing with what did I do?
Okay.
Right? I can be, it's kind of the opposite of looking for a scapegoat, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I can't deal with this awful, horrible thing. And so I'm going to be questioning the what did I do to deserve it or cause it? Because that one, in some ways, it allows anger, right? It allows all those things that are more dynamic emotions than the simple loss and grief.
Yeah.
I wonder if it has something to do with that.
That makes sense, because it's like when something tragic happens, we want to have a reason. We want to pin it on something. And if we can't pin it on something, then maybe one of the places we go is ourselves. We try to pin it on ourselves. Like, well, what did I do?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
To cause this, or what choice did I make that resulted in this terrible outcome? Sometimes you have to really work to try to connect those kinds of dots, but we're grieving, so we're trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. But it's so not biblical. I want to lift that up as high as I possibly can for anyone who is raised with this idea that if you step out of line in your current life, you will receive punishment for stepping out of line. If you think that good things happen to good people and people are punished for things they do, well, first of all, it's pretty obvious that's not true. I mean, if you look around the world and you look at horrible people,
Yeah.
And we can sit there and say, well, but they must be suffering somehow. And it's like, maybe.
Are they?
I mean, some of them definitely are. And some of them, I'm thinking about somebody that we both don't love very much. We love, but don't like very much. And it's really easy to go back and say, well, I can see how this person became this way because of the abusive tyrant father and blah, 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 blah. But that doesn't actually account for it.
It doesn't account for anything.
It explains the why, but it doesn't say. And so that person must be just so internally in pain that's why they... No, sometimes people are just assholes.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
So setting that piece aside for the minute, if you look out in the world, it's obvious that the best people in your life don't necessarily get this external reward for that. And the worst people in your life don't get the most damage for that.
Oh, right.
Right? And it's absolutely true in the Bible as well.
Yeah.
I mean, consistently. So if you've got a pastor or a parent or somebody who's saying, if you do something wrong, God will punish you in this life. Not going to worry about the other life for a minute. In this life, simple observation tells you that's not true.
Tells you that's not true. Absolutely. Right.
And if anybody should not have been punished, in big scare quotes, it's Jesus.
It's Jesus. Yeah.
Right? Who was kind of all around a good guy.
Yep.
Anyway, I don't know if that's helpful for anybody.
I think it is. I mean, again, the season that we've been working our way through since 2020, people experienced a lot of bad things. We had family members that died.
Yep.
We had people who lost jobs, who lost homes. It was a very scary and tragic time. Certainly, it seemed arbitrary when you're on the way up here, God's eye view, who's being affected by this, but it wasn't altogether arbitrary. But I also think that, the interesting thing is we're talking about why me, and this may be a complete aside, but in the COVID mess, so many people who died were people who opted not to get vaccinated. For whatever reason,
or
many of them
get health care or whatever.
Or didn't get health care or whatever. But some of those people, decided not to get vaccinated because their pastor said not to, or their politician or whatever said not to. They believed stuff that contradicted science, and so they didn't get the vaccine, which was the case of a member of my own family. And then when they die, no one wants to say that it was COVID.
Right.
Or if they do say it was COVID, it's like, well, poor thing. That was just a horrible way to die.
Right.
When we were given the means to prevent that, you know what I mean? So anyway.
But just staying on that for a second. All right, so let's take out the why me that is an aspect of grief or that is a kind of self-victimization to excuse other things.
Yeah.
Let's take that out for a second.
Yeah.
I think there's a fair question. I know that there's a fair question that is not so much why me, but what choices did I make that got me here?
Sure.
Okay. And so I'm thinking, going back to COVID for a minute, to me, one of the great tragedies of the pandemic is that the areas that had no good health care suffered the most.
Yes.
They had no good health care because the political environs in which they live don't support health care, which is what it is. Like in rural areas, there simply isn't health care available.
Exactly.
That's literally a political choice, a tax choice, a set of choices. Now, it's a much bigger system problem. It isn't like you can solve it immediately. But I do think that there's something to say, okay, wait a minute. Why here? Why is it so much worse here? And if you go to, well, those people are putting it in the water, then you kind of have to back up and go, okay, wait a minute. Maybe there's something. That's where why me will destroy you.
Yeah.
Is because you go to things that are crazy instead of we've set up a system that disproportionately hurts people who are already in poverty, in, whatever the thing is.
Right. Exactly.
So I think that when we go to why me, once we get through that first flush of self-pity, self-loathing, pain, then we can, as we're grieving, go to, okay, is there anything realistic that set this up? And if it's a tragedy like a miscarriage, it is biology that sets this up. If it is somebody getting hit by a truck, part of it is trucks are 14,000 pounds and you're 200. You know what I mean? So trying to kind of, as best you can, trying to kind of get that sense of there are so many factors and natural laws at play here that to go immediately to, I have done something wrong, or I'm a victim, or God hates me, or I'm being punished, or, the world has turned against me, doesn't do anything. It just makes you feel worse.
It makes you feel worse. Yeah.
And then it turns into anger, which then turns into, blah, blah, blah. I don't know.
Right. There are people at the highest levels of power in our country, whether it be in media or in corporate America or in politics or whatever, who definitely exploit that.
Absolutely.
Who make sure that people are reminded.
Over and over again.
Yeah. And then that just deepens the anger, deepens the why me. Mm-hmm. It's such a trap because it is. It's just, and it's a difficult cycle to get out of. I was having a conversation with my mom last week, and she sometimes gets in this spiral, and it just sounded as if she was just, nobody understands, nobody does what I do, nobody gets it. I'm just like, and it was very much this why me,
Right.
and in those conversations, it's like I try to be very gentle with her.
Right.
I just want to listen,
Right.
and know that I'm paying attention, that I'm hearing her, because I think a lot of it is that she doesn't feel heard or seen.
Well, she's isolated.
And she feels very isolated. That can be just a trap.
Yes.
In our thinking.
Yes.
And, one that I've worked really hard not to fall into anymore. I think I had a season where that was a lot of what I was thinking and praying, and a lot of it was me going to God, of course God can take it. And God's like, oh, honey, I love you so much. You're just so, we're going to get through this. It'll be okay.
Exactly.
Getting that little pat on the head sometimes is exactly what I needed from God.
Absolutely.
To just give me that perspective.
Or just the arm around the shoulder. It's like,
Absolutely.
I'm going to walk through this with you.
Yeah.
This is not about you, sweetheart. This is the way. This is how the world is arranged. Mm-hmm. And you can get mad at me for how the world's arranged, but we're still going to walk through it together.
We're still going to walk through it together. Exactly. Listeners, what are your thoughts? We love hearing from you. You can reach us via our website, which is WeAreSFS. It's WEARES, F as in Fred, S as in snake.com.
Fred Snake?
Fred
Is
Snake.
that where you just went?
That's where I went. And there's a contact us button, and it will send your message directly to us. And we would love to hear from you. We love to get suggestions for cocktails. Thank you, Bruce, for this one. Mm-hmm. We love to get suggestions for podcast topics, episodes, things you'd like to hear from us. We always love hearing from you. So please do reach out. And we would love for you to continue to listen and share us. Subscribe on your favorite podcast listening place.
Yes.
Whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever, subscribe to us. That helps our metrics, and that helps other people find us.
Exactly.
So we love that you're listening. We hope you will tune in to new episodes every Thursday. We have some exciting ones coming up that we will be sharing with you throughout this season, and we're very happy to be here with you.
Yay!
Bye guys.